The Odyssey by T.M. Connolly. The great Trojan War had finally ended. After 10 long years of fighting, the clever Greek hero Odysseus longed to sail home to his wife Penelope and his son Telemachus. His kingdom of Ithaca was many days away across the sea. Odysseus believed the journey home would be easy, but the gods had other plans. As his ships sailed across sparkling waters, the crew reached the land of the lotus eaters. Anyone who ate the strange flowers forgot about home and wanted to stay forever. Several sailors tasted the flowers and refused to leave. Odysseus had to carry them back to the ships before they forgot everything they loved. With all the sailors back on the ships, they set sail again. Soon they reached an island where a giant Cyclops named Polyphemus lived inside a huge cave with his flock of sheep. Curious, Odysseus and his men stepped inside. When the Cyclops returned and found Odysseus and his crew, he rolled a huge stone over the entrance, trapping them inside. Every day the giant Cyclops would eat some of the frightened sailors. Odysseus made a clever plan. When the Cyclops asked Odysseus what his name was, Odysseus replied, "My name is Nobody." After the giant fell asleep, the sailors used a sharpened tree trunk to blind his single eye. Polyphemus cried out in pain. Desperate for help, he called out to the other Cyclops on the island. When the other Cyclops on the island came to his aid, they asked, "Who did this to you?" Polyphemus replied, "Nobody did this to me." The other Cyclops thought nothing was wrong, and so they returned to their caves. The next morning, Polyphemus had to let his sheep out of the cave so they could graze. Now blind, he ran his hands over the sheep as they left the cave. If Odysseus tried to ride the sheep out of the cave, he would feel them. But Odysseus was clever and had planned for this. He and his men clung to the bottom of the sheep by holding on to their thinkwool. As the sheep ran past Polyphemus, Odysseus and his crew escaped undetected. As the ship sailed away, Odysseus proudly shouted his real name, "I am Odysseus, King of Ithaca." Angry and hurt, Polyphemus prayed to his father, the sea god Poseidon, for revenge. From that day on, storms followed Odysseus wherever he sailed. Poseidon would make every mile home far more difficult. The travellers reached the floating island of Aeolus, keeper of the winds. He trapped every wild wind inside a leather bag and gave it to Odysseus. Aeolus warned him not to open the bag until they reached home. Odysseus set off again, and Ithaca soon appeared on the horizon. While Odysseus slept, the curious sailors opened the bag, thinking it held treasure. But the winds escaped, blowing the ships all the way back across the sea. It pushed the fleet all the way to a land of fierce giants called the Laestrygonians. The giants attacked by hurling huge rocks, which crashed down on the sailors, destroying nearly every ship. Only Odysseus's own ship escaped the attack. The small crew sailed on, praying to the gods for better luck. They drifted until they reached an island belonging to the powerful enchantress Circe. With her powerful magic, she turned many of the sailors into pigs. But the messenger god Hermes had answered Odysseus's prayers and gave him a magical plant that protected him from Circe's spell. Impressed by his courage, Circe changed the sailors back into people. Circe became their friend and offered wise advice for the dangerous journey ahead. She warned them that many terrible creatures still waited across the sea once they left her palace. As the sailors carefully approached the beautiful voices of the Sirens, Odysseus plugged his crew's ears with wax. He then ordered his crew to tie him to the mast, but not plug his ears, so he could safely hear their haunting song. The Sirens sang promises of knowledge and glory. No matter how much Odysseus begged, his crew refused to untie him until the danger had passed. With the Sirens behind them, Odysseus sailed into a narrow passage guarded by two terrible monsters. On one side waited Scylla, a huge scaly monster with 12 feet and 6 heads. On the other swirled the deadly whirlpool Charybdis. Odysseus steered as carefully as he could. Although they escaped the whirlpool, Scylla snatched several sailors before disappearing into the cliffs. Next, the weary and starving crew landed on an island where they found the sacred cattle of the sun god, Helios. Circe had warned the sailors never to harm the animals, or they would face the wrath of the gods. But food became scarce, and the hungry sailors ignored the warning. One night, while Odysseus slept, the starving crew captured and ate the cattle. The gods became furious. Zeus unleashed his full might and sent a powerful storm to smash their ship. Only the powerful Odysseus survived the attack. Floating on broken pieces of wood, Odysseus drifted across the sea for many days. At last, he reached the island of the nymph, Calypso. As Calypso cared for Odysseus, she fell in love with him. She planned to use her charms to keep him on her island forever. Although the island was beautiful, Odysseus never stopped thinking about home and his wife, Penelope. After 7 long years, the gods finally ordered Calypso to let him leave. She helped him build a sturdy raft for the journey back to Ithaca. Poseidon spotted Odysseus crossing the sea and sent another terrible storm. Beaten and battered, the brave sailor barely reached the land of the Phaeacians. The kind people welcomed the tired traveller without knowing who he was. During a great feast, Odysseus finally shared the story of his incredible adventures. The Phaeacians admired his courage and kindness. They loaded a new ship with supplies and sailed him safely to Ithaca while he rested. After 20 years away, Odysseus finally stood on the shores of his home. At first, he hardly recognized his own kingdom. The goddess Athena disguised him as an old traveler. She warned him that many greedy men were trying to marry Queen Penelope and steal his throne. Odysseus secretly reunited with his grown son, Telemachus. Together, they planned how to save their home. Inside the palace, Penelope announced a special contest. Whoever could string Odysseus's great bow and shoot an arrow through the hole of 12 axes in a row would become the new king. One by one, the suitors tried and failed. None of them could even bend the mighty bow to string it. Then the old traveller stepped forward and easily strung the bow. He pulled it back and sent the arrow perfectly through every ring. Everyone realized the old traveller was really Odysseus. With Telemachus beside him, he drove the wicked suitors from the palace and reclaimed his kingdom. Odysseus and Penelope were finally together again after 20 long years apart. His long adventure had taught that courage, wisdom, and never giving up can lead you safely home. The end.